It would be a lie to say that the pandemic has been an overly positive experience for professional photographers. Lens Rentals carried out a survey on more than 1,000 professional photographers and videographers. The results were not surprising at all, with more than 96% of the respondents suggesting that their income or work had been negatively impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. The survey goes on to look at what impact COVID-19 has had on expected April bookings or events in 2020. 74.6% have said that all or almost all of their jobs have been cancelled, and 14.1% have said that most of their jobs have been cancelled. A very, very, very tiny percentage have said that there's no impact at all. To try and get a better understanding of how professionals have dealt with the pandemic, I decided to interview Cambridge University photographer Dominique Zales. Dominique is well versed within the industry, working alongside Cambridge University, Wired Magazine, Jordan Belford and Professor Stephen Hawking, alongside others. I'm going to ask you a few questions, so give me a bit of background on your line of work. Do you work for a company or do you work for yourself?
So, I'm a self-employed and also an LTD owner. I work alongside businesses and influential people. So I don't work for anyone. I work for my own sake of my own company. I find my own clients and establish my own business relations.
A limited company is a company limited by shares or limited by guarantee. Companies that are limited by shares are usually businesses that make a profit. This means that the company is legally separate from the people who run it, has separate finances from personal ones, has shares and shareholders, and can keep any profits it makes after paying tax. Limited by guarantee companies are usually not for profit. This means that the company is legally separate from the people who run it, same as limited by shares, has separate finances from personal ones, has guarantors and a guaranteed amount, and invests profits it makes back into the company. Unfortunately, there is very little support for limited companies. However, they are eligible to apply for the furlough scheme, as well as for a bounce back loan. The bounce back loan scheme enables smaller businesses to access finance more quickly during the coronavirus outbreak. It allows for small and medium-sized businesses to borrow between £2,000 and up to 25% of their turnover. The maximum amount available is £50,000. It guarantees 100% of the loan, and there will not be any fees or interest to pay for the first 12 months. However, after a year, the interest rates will be 2.5% per year. In order to apply for a bounce back loan, your business must be based in the United Kingdom and be established before the 1st of March 2020, and obviously been impacted by the coronavirus. The loan has a duration of 6 years, but you can always repay at an earlier time without paying a fee. And remember, no repayments will be due during the first 12 months. Applicants must also consider that before their first repayment is due, their lender will contact them about further options to extend the term of the loan to 10 years, to move to interest-only repayments for a period of 6 months, which can be used up to 3 times, or to pause your repayments for a period of 6 months, which can only be done 1 time. In order to apply for a bounce back loan, you must contact one of 29 lenders participating in the scheme, including many of the main retail banks. You should approach a suitable lender via the website of the lender. You will be asked to fill in a short online application form and self-declare that you are eligible. If you've worked during the pandemic, if you've been able to work, has it been quite strict?
It depends. There were various stages when it comes to working during the pandemic, if that makes sense. Of course, interaction one-to-one, as in like meeting people or going to places, was completely abolished because most of them are shut and people are at home. So there's no interaction when it comes to people. The way this kind of progressed and changed was working remotely and getting more creative. As in, if there's a creative brief, instead of meeting the client and this kind of stuff for a coffee, you will meet the client on Zoom and you would establish goals and ambitions and objections and this kind of stuff, and you will work ahead on your own, if that makes sense. So as a photographer, as in like you have to evolve a little bit as it stands right now.
Did you receive like any support from the government when you weren't able to work?
I evolved. Easy as that. I mean, I think I tried to apply for the government grant, but I couldn't because my income wasn't. It should have been more than 50% of your income if you're self-employed in order to get that grant, and I didn't.
On the 20th of March 2020, Chancellor of the Exchequer Rishi Sunak introduced the Coronavirus Job Retention Scheme. This allows any employer across the country of any size to contact HM Revenue and Customs for a grant to cover most of the wages of people who are unable to work but are furloughed and kept on the payroll. The grants cover 80% of the salary of retained workers up to a maximum of £2,500 a month, which is above the median income. Employers are able to top up salaries more if they so choose to. The scheme has allowed for many workers in all of the UK to keep their job, even if their employer cannot afford to pay them. The Job Retention Scheme covers all costs of wages back to the 1st of March 2020.
What I saw personally when it comes to this coronavirus, this was the right time to catch up on your life.
It's just changed society forever.
It's survival of the fittest, isn't it?
So the government didn't help you.
No.
How could they help you?
Well, this grant that they were receiving, as in that was great, if that makes sense. But I know it was around like 80% of what your annual income would have been, if that makes sense. That would help me a lot, don't take me wrong, but as in like I'm also happy that it didn't, because it made me push myself.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, if I'm not going to receive any money from the government, I have to find a way of doing it. And I did. How to say that, was in a very uncomfortable situation. And sometimes you seek for discomfort, if that makes sense. I had to think otherwise. This changed me forever, as in I'm not gonna stick around and be like, oh yeah, I'm a photographer, I'm not, because I'm a lot more than that now. Thanks to the pandemic, huh?
Self-employed people who have been affected by the coronavirus might be able to get money from the government if they have lost out on income or have had to stop working. They're eligible for up to 80% of their average profits of up to a maximum of £7,500 for 3 months from the government. This is known as the Self-Employment Income Support Scheme. In order to be eligible for the scheme, you must have traded in both tax years from 2019-2020 and submitted your tax return on or before the 2nd of March 2021. You must also be currently trading but are impacted by reduced demand due to coronavirus, or have been trading but are temporarily unable to do so due to coronavirus. You must also declare that you intend to continue trading and reasonably believe that there will be a significant reduction in how much profit you get from your trading. For those who are ineligible for the self-employment support scheme, there are other options such as universal credit, which is a monthly payment which helps people with living costs, which you're able to get if you're on a low income, unemployed, or unable to find work. And I guess in the case of this, because of the pandemic, applicants must provide information about their income and how much they earn. At the end of each monthly assessment period, you'll need to report how much you earn from self-employment, even if it's nothing at all. The universal credit payment itself is worked out based on the earnings that you report at the end of each monthly assessment period. If you're self-employed, it will be calculated based on your combined earnings from self-employment and employment. Unfortunately, if you make a loss from self-employment, only your employment earnings will be used to calculate how much universal credit you get. Dom has been very lucky in that he has the skills to utilise and move his business into an online form. However, many others have not done this and have fallen into a lot of trouble, to no fault of their own. I spoke to another photographer, Tom Alforth. Tom used to work as a second shooter for a local photographer-videographer at some weekend events before these were postponed in March. Tom continued to look for contracted jobs, However, he noticed that many companies were offering less creative roles, meaning that it was even more competitive. He says that some companies that had photographing roles that he was in the process of applying for had to put hiring down due to the uncertainty of the situation. He continued to work part-time in a retail job, and as the summer came, looked forward to shooting more. He was able to assist with a video marketing company in his hometown of St Ives, and then was able to start shooting sporting events. However, due to the uncertainty ahead, Tom found a full-time job working within the construction industry, whilst simultaneously working part-time in his retail job and doing freelance photography. He has learned new skills in this job, and it has also helped him to invest a bit more in his photography as the second and third lockdowns took place. Tom wants to work full-time as a freelancer or within a contracted creative role. Overall, the pandemic has affected Tom in terms of his line of work, both in and out of photography, following his time at university. It has made him think about how creatives need to be flexible and have a variety of skills set. Overall, the pandemic has definitely affected Tom in regards to his line of work, both in and out of photography. It has made him think about how creatives need to be flexible and have various skills in order to adapt in unexpected situations, even if it's just on a temporary basis. This echoes similar sentiments to what Don was saying earlier about having to move your business onto an online form. Looking back at the lens rental survey earlier on in the essay, and looking at the lack of thorough support for photographers, the general picture is not very good at all. It appears that there is not much direct help for photographers, and they are having to look for a different line of work to get by. The very stringent regulations behind the self-employment support scheme, universal credit, as well as the furlough, has made it difficult for people to earn money whilst not being able to work. This is very bleak indeed, and will lead to a potential migration of photographic industry workers